In this video, we're going to continue our discussion of some of the sketch tools that are available in Solidworks. We're going to cover the segment, which you probably haven't heard of before, trim and extend, which are pretty much the same tool, split entities, which is a very cool one with some unique applications, jog line, which I hadn't heard of before, construction geometry, which I'm sure you used frequently, and make path, which I've used a couple of times. So let's get started with segment. I'm going to start by drawing a couple of entities on the screen, a line, an arc, and a spline. That's a bad choice for an arc because the angle is so shallow on it that it looks like a line. Tools, sketch tools, segment, and segment parameters. First of all, something to segment, and you notice it just puts up some dots, and it'll put up more dots. Adding this number of sketch points or splitting the element into this many sketch elements. Let's do the sketch points thing first. Click the green check. And here we have just our original straight line with a bunch of points on it. And these points are controlled by the equidistant sketch relationship. Okay, now let's take a look at our arc. Another tool that you may not use that frequently is the recent commands. I would prefer that they had just a hotkey where you could retrieve the last used command. But this is interesting as well. So I'll get the segment from here instead of delving through the menus. We'll change this one to sketch segments. And when I hit the green check on this, instead of having a single arc, now I've got a whole series of arcs that are all co-radial and equal length. You can do the same sort of thing with a spline. Let's again get our recent commands, segment, hit the spline. Now the sketch points is kind of boring. We know what that's going to do, but splitting this spline into segments is going to give us a message. Splitting of a modifiable spline changes its geometry. Convert the spline to fixed shape spline before splitting, and I'll just say yes on that. Now we have a series of small splines that conform to the original spline. Now you can't really edit this. That's the downfall here. The trim command is something you've probably used a lot. I'll just demonstrate it here in case you haven't had the chance to use this before. This one you can find on your sketch toolbar. So one way that you can use this, the simplest way, is the trim to closest, and you can just click to get rid of the end that you don't want. Control Z and click on this again. Power trim will allow you to drag the cursor across the things that you don't want. And that's another very useful one. Again, Control Z to get all that back. Corner, you click on the things that you want to keep. And then there are other functions like trim away inside, trim away outside if you have a whole series of lines. You have some interesting options here. Keep trimmed entities as construction geometry. I can see where this would be useful. Ignore trimming of construction geometry. I can see where both of those would be useful. There are a couple of functions that they don't really talk about in the interface. One is that if you've got an item that's just all on its own, you can click on it and delete it. If you switch to the corner tool, Solidworks both extends and then trims. And the power trim tool will allow you to grab an endpoint, pull it up to what's next, and just extend. You can do pretty much the same without the trim tool as well. Just to demonstrate the extend capabilities, we'll draw a couple extra lines and turn on extend. Extend allows you to just click on a line and extend it to the next one. So that's trim and extend. Split entities is an interesting one. Now let's add an arc in here. And split entities, if we go to this tool Tools, Sketch Tools, Split Entities. Click on the entity to split. It's pretty simple. And you click where you want it to split. Okay? So here I've split this arc into two. One of the things that I use this for in particular is if I'm doing a loft, this spline trimmed out that face, and if we look at the spline itself, you can see that the spline is split. The spline was split at the two ends, and when that is used to trim the model, then this comes out as a separate selectable edge. And that allows me to use, say, this edge to loft to this edge, because this surface was also trimmed with a spline that was split. Or not necessarily a spline. This could have been just a series of lines or arcs or whatever. But the point is that there is an endpoint in the trimming entity, and that created these edges, which allows you to control more precisely your loft, your boundary surface, or whatever. A lot of applications for this. It's not just an academic sort of exercise. We also want to talk about the jog tool. So let's pick up the jog tool, and the message says to click and drag this on a sketch line. It turns out this only works on lines. It won't work on arcs or splines or ellipses, just on lines. So click where you want to start the jog, and then drag out the length and the height of the jog. And when you get it where you want it, just left click. I know the cursor icon shows a green check mark on the right mouse button, but you only do that when you're done with the command. You don't do that while you're sketching. If you do that while you're sketching, it'll just exit you from the command. To go through that workflow again, click where you want to start, drag out the height, release the mouse button, and then click and release again to make the jog. And remember that you can make multiple jogs in a single command. And right-click to exit the command. Now let's create something that might be used as a cam follower. So I'm going to create a straight line, drag this out, a couple of different radiuses for a tangent arc. Okay, so let's say that this is a path that we want a cam to follow. If we extrude this, we're going to wind up with a bunch of different segments. A planar face, a cylindrical face, and so on around here. So one of the things that you can do is use Tools, Sketch Tools, Make Path. Selected entities, it's looking for a whole set, so we're going to use a box. And to make this a functional cam, you have to follow through by turning all of this into a block and then setting it into a sketch where sketch motion can be used to have a follower follow this. Click OK. So now this is identified inside the Solidworks software as a path that you can use for a cam follower to establish appropriate motion across a bunch of different sketch entities. Thanks for watching this video. Come back next time when we'll talk about mirror, patterns, and some move, rotate, scale, and copy functions.